Hey guys, welcome to Ringsiders Wrestling. I am Jamie. He is Callum as always, and our very special guest, she's Sarah the Rebel. Hello, Sarah.
Hey there.
Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Whereabouts are you again? Sorry, then in the States.
I live in Vegas, unfortunately.
Wow. Oh man, how is it over there at the moment?
Well, it's a bunch of people from every other state coming to hang out and have a party time.
Yay.
So...
Sounds good.
Wow. Well, yeah. What a time to have a party, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit crazy.
My friends are always like, come out with us. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a global pandemic going on at the moment or something, but
I've heard.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah, we're on total lockdown now again in the UK, so we're literally working home. That's it. But, it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But I'd love to get back out to Vegas. I went to Vegas a few years ago, and I absolutely fell in love with the place. So it's back on the bucket list to get back out there at some point when the world reopens.
It's fun to visit. Living here is not my thing. I don't like to be bumped into. I don't like people. I don't like loud people. It's not a great place for me.
It's all of those things.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, you're very much like me. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not very people-y, and so I'm totally with you on that one. Yeah, I'd come to visit. That's about it. But anyway, let's talk some wrestling. Let's talk some wrestling because we are a wrestling podcast. But we're so happy you came on. We're big fan. We've been following along. So tell us how your journey started. You trained at Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy, right?
Yes. So I used to work in the video game industry. I lived in LA at the time, and I would go to all the video game conventions, and one of those is called E3.
Yeah.
I was at E3, and I met Xavier Woods from the WWE.
Cool.
We get to talking because we both like video games, of course, and it comes up that to become a wrestler, you go to wrestling school. Now, this had never occurred to me before. When I was younger and I watched wrestling for women, models became wrestlers, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not a model, so I can't be a wrestler. So it just never occurred to me to look more into it. Because when you're a kid, you're like famous people. They're busy, they're famous, then they go on TV. That's how it works. So I was like, school? So I Googled wrestling school in LA, and Santino Bros popped up, but it was like thousands of dollars. So I said, okay, I'm gonna just put a pin in that. Then Woods gave me so I used to have a podcast called Women's Wrestling Friends with my co-host Tamara Brooks, and Woods got her and I tickets to go to Raw. Now, I had never been to a live wrestling show before because the one time when WWE did come to Hampton, Virginia, where I grew up, Eddie Guerrero rode my brother's lowrider into the ring.
Awesome.
Is pretty cool, but they said, oh, it's not a place for little kids, which is a lie. They absolutely lied. Everyone at the wrestling show is a little kid. Anyway, they told me that, so I never went when I was little. So this was my first time going to a wrestling show. My co-host and I watched the show. We get to the car. There's a flyer for Santino Bros on the windshield, and I was just like, okay, that's a sign. I'm gonna go. So I did.
That's so cool, though. You said you started in the video game industry.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it you did then in the video game industry?
I did public relations, journalism, and then a little bit of writing.
Awesome. So you go to like E3 and report on the new releases and stuff like that, and then you found out about. Was you a wrestling fan at all before?
Yes. Yeah. So when I was a little kid, I fell in love with wrestling because of China.
Yeah.
I love China and Luna, and I would watch desperately for glimpses of women every time I watched. But then once I started hitting puberty around the time things really got like puppies focused, and it was like not great for myself, as you know what I mean? Like I was just getting angry all the time. I was like, why are you talking about them like they're a pair of titties? They're wrestlers. And I realized like I'm not enjoying the show at all. So I stopped watching wrestling for years, and I would watch it if like other people had it on, or if it was a WrestleMania and people invited me over, but I didn't follow it for a long time. And I just started watching it again when I ran into Woods. I'd seen like Dana Brooke was very inspiring to me because I had that kind of, not as strong looking as her, but I kind of had that body type. And I was like, oh, they let thicker people wrestle now. This was exciting. So yeah, it was like a whole circle of events.
Yeah, what I've noticed as well, obviously you had the Women's Revolution, and I said this a couple of days ago to somebody. I think with the pandemic, it's really shone a light on the indies again. I think they've been really thriving, and I almost feel like there's a women's revolution on the indie circuit at the moment. Obviously, like yourself and Elena Black and Layla Hirsch. Do you see that as well? Is that something you've been noticing?
Well, I think that people are maybe paying more attention now than they were before, but I actually think that women on the indie scene have been doing this sort of thing for a while. They've been having intergender matches. They've been having hardcore matches. They've been really great wrestlers, but the problem was they had other things holding them up. For example, in California, there were laws against women's wrestling up until I think the 90s, like something crazy. Like they literally had a law against women's wrestling in the state of California. Yeah, so there was like
something you'd expect in the early 1900s or something.
No, this was at least through the 70s. And then also a problem that women would run into a lot is you go to train, there's only other guys at the school. It can be very isolating. And sometimes it can be dangerous depending on what school you go to. But okay, you make it through, but probably not very many girls make it through. So you make it through and you're ready to start wrestling, and there's no other women for you to wrestle.
Yep, I've seen that firsthand. When I used to train, there was 2 girls, and one of them quit because the trainer, unfortunately, was quite creepy, which left the other girl by herself, and she left just because there was no other girl to train with. And I was like, that's such a shame, because that must happen so often, or more so in the past, because I think it's nowadays, I think training is starting to hopefully get a little bit better when it comes to female trainees. But we spoke to Layla Hirsch the other day and Heidi Katrina, and they were both saying some classes are all girl now, which is good. I think that's a good, like, have all female classes. What was your training like then? Obviously, going back to that, was your training quite a positive experience for you?
No, it wasn't negative in the way that some people's were. I'm just very hard on myself. I watch wrestling. I know what it should look like. And when I got in the ring and I tried to move, I found that my body was not moving the way I wanted it to. So I was incredibly hard on myself. And my trainers used to say that to me, like, why are you putting all this pressure on you that nobody else is putting, So it was really hard for me. There were 4 girls the first day. And then I had one other girl that lasted, I think, a week. And then it was just me up until the point where there were only 4 people in the class, me, Dom Kubrick, and 2 other guys who didn't end up graduating. But they were all really strong guys, athletic guys who did sports or were, bodybuilders. And then there was me, who was a video game nerd who sat on her couch for the last 15 years. So it was incredibly difficult for me. But then I actually got an injury and I had to stop wrestling. And so I went and I did Pilates to build up my core strength, because that's what my weakness was. When you sit all day, you get a week back. And of course, I sit all day. I'm not going to stand up and play with video games. Boring. Anyway, so I strengthened my back. I came back, and in that class, there was another girl, Viva Van. You may have seen her making some waves on the indie scene now. So she and I were able to comfort each other and push each other. And I made it way further in that class. But then I got one instructor who was just I couldn't handle the way he spoke to me. I just couldn't. But I ended up graduating eventually from Santino Bros. So it all worked out. And then at WoW, it was all women training at WoW. And it was an amazingly different experience.
Yeah, a positive experience then.
It definitely felt, just the whole vibe and the feeling was completely different. But then after that, I did a week of the New Japan camp. And I was the only girl out of 30 people training Japanese strong style.
What was that like?
That was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you that next, actually. Yeah, it was the LA Dojo, New Japan LA Dojo, correct? Yeah. What was that experience like? 'Cause I guess that's a much tougher training experience, perhaps?
It definitely was. They're much more focused on fitness than moves in some ways. We only learned 5 moves while we were there. It was the various rolls, headlock, a lockup, and now for some reason I can't remember the other 2, but like very, very, very basic. And what they spent most of their time was on our conditioning. So, you know, like 100 jump squats and then 100 normal squats, going through circuits, like doing real wrestling, so like amateur style wrestling. And I had no experience with any of this. You know, even I kept trying to ask the guys, I was like, what am I even, when we would like grab each other and do the amateur wrestling, like, what am I trying to accomplish? I literally don't even know what, like, what am I doing? Like, am I trying to pin your shoulders? Like, am I like, what? And they were also focused on, you know, impressing Shibata that nobody would tell me. So I'm literally just in there like, I don't know what I'm doing.
That must have been quite a nerve-wracking experience, training in front of Shibata. I mean, somebody who is so idolized and respected in the wrestling scene, to then be thrown into training with him, I think I'd crumble if I was in that position.
I will say, there was Mima Shimoda was there. They brought her in because I was going to be there. They knew they were going to have a woman there, so they wanted a woman trainer there. Yeah. But unfortunately, they thought more of us would speak Spanish than we did. So Mima only spoke Spanish and Japanese. Shibata only speaks Japanese. And then Scorpio Sky and what's Azucar? Rocky Romero. I'm like, what is your real name? They would kind of guess what Shibata was saying, or like maybe they, you know, kind of spoken with him before to get a sense of what he was looking for. So it was sometimes a relay of like trying to figure out what was being said. But she said to me one day, I was sick, by the way, too. During this whole thing, I had like tissues stuffed up my nose, cough. And what she said to me is, she said, "You have a strong heart." And that's what she called me, strong heart, the whole time I was there. And even at one point, we're doing handstand push-ups, and my body is crumbling, and she's just holding me up with her body, like, "Nope, you can do it." It was really beautiful. But then at the very end of all training, you know, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. We made it through a week, and Shibata says, "A toddler could do what you all have done." And we were like,
oh, right, okay.
That's true.
So that was a kick in the gut, I imagine.
It just kind of, I think it was good that he said that. It put things into perspective. Like, don't feel good about yourselves because you got through a week of training. Shut up. You know? Like,
fair point. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting you to say that, but another name you mentioned there as well. Obviously, we've actually spoken to Rocky Romero, who's an absolute lovely guy. The other guy you mentioned, Scorpio Sky. What was it like working with him? Because he's looking like he's going to be a megastar at some point very soon.
He was very professional. That's pretty much all he did was, you know, like it wasn't a lot of like his personality or his perspective or what he, you know, he was very much him like putting Shibata's plan into motion. So yeah, it was more that than anything. But of course, yeah, he's obviously very talented, very strong. I sometimes during the circuit I'd be like, "Sky, help! I literally can't move this. Is there another way to do it?" And he'd just be like, no. I'm like, okay, thank you.
And obviously after you train and stuff, when you got in the business, you started out as a manager. Is that correct? What was that experience like? I mean, I love the manager role, and I think it's some of that we need a lot more of in the business today. What was it like being in the manager role?
I loved being a manager. So that's where I eventually graduated from Santino Bros, was through their manager class. And I was so excited. I wanted to manage Jake Atlas because I like Jake, and I felt like Jake, he can get a little shy sometimes. And I felt like he was the type of person who would really benefit from a manager because it would give him permission to be more open. And he was, when he was with tag teams, you could actually, if you go back and watch Jake Atlas matches, you can see that when he had a tag partner, he was clearly more comfortable. I think he's just one of those people who like needs one other person there to be like, yeah. Then he's like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I want to manage Jake Atlas is going to be great. Well, around that time, I started dating Tyler Bateman, who's with Ring of Honor now. And the guy who booked Santino Bros is like, so who do you want to manage? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, Jake. And he's like, well, what do you think about Tyler Bateman? I was like, no, that's stupid. Bateman's been wrestling for 17 years. He's amazing on the mic. He doesn't need a manager, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, well, that's who I have for you because I want to do a Lita and Edge kind of thing. And I was like, it ended up being great because working with someone who had 17 years of experience meant my training fast forwarded. Sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll say, wow, I've only been working for 3 years. And that's not counting the 7 months of not being able, to work. And that's not all wrestling. That's 3 years of managing. And I'll say, why do you know all this stuff? And I'm like, because I worked with a guy who'd been in the business for 17 years and he told me everything I needed to know. So it's like, I'm very thankful for getting to sit under his learning tree. And it was fun being doing the romantic angle and everything, but definitely have preferred other people I've managed just as far as what I get to do.
Yeah.
Because people have very set thoughts on what they wanted Tyler Bateman to be doing. And that often didn't leave room for a manager. Versus when I managed the Psycho Sisters on WoW, I'm an integral part of that team. When I managed Vipress at Glam, that was going to be so fun. Sadly, I had to end up going to Scotland for 2 months, so we didn't get to continue that. But I've managed several people since then. I'm currently managing Ricky Mandel. And I kind of prefer managing women, but overall, it's definitely fun, and I wish that more promoters saw the value in managers. Unfortunately, they don't.
So true. Yeah. And one thing I actually really like to see is they do it in NXT. There's males managing females too, because that's something you never really get. It's always been valets, like female managers managing a male wrestler, but it makes sense. Why wouldn't a guy manage a female wrestler too?
Right.
And we're starting to see that with, we saw it with Chelsea Green.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. It was a really good pairing, and I'd like to see more of that down the line too, where it's males managing females opposed to always the other way around. Like that, even as a kid, I was like, why is it always the females that manages? Like,
yeah. I agree with you. Bateman wanted to manage me. Like, he really, really wanted to be my manager. But just like at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, they would never let him come out when I would have my matches, except the very first time. And he even was like, maybe I could put on a mask. And then, he really we wanted to do it. And it would be great for just like with young guys, or, when you put the more experienced person as the manager, you can really elevate the less experienced person, because I can go to the ropes and he could be like, okay, don't forget to do this. Okay, cool. Go back. And like that ability to communicate.
Like a real manager.
Like a real manager. Exactly. Yeah. I wish people would consider just how much it can help their wrestlers if they took it seriously.
Yeah, it's something I mean, obviously I've been watching wrestling over 30 years. I'm an old man, by the way. I've been watching it for so long, and a lot of my childhood memories are Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Sherry Martel, and it's like, I love the manager role, and it's something that I truly wish we saw a lot more of in today's wrestling. You mentioned, obviously, Championship Wrestling as well from Hollywood. What's that experience been like, and what's it like, obviously, working with DaveMarquette?
I did work with them for a while. Unfortunately, they're one of those carny places that, like, they let, they have their own thing that they want it to be a certain way, and they don't care about paying their wrestlers well. And they're very political, so I'm not a fan of them. I don't work with them anymore.
Right.
But it's nice to see that through his work, California wrestlers are being put on the map. So I will say that is the positive side of things.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair enough. If you've had negative experiences, but that's what you can take away from it. That's absolutely fair enough. I mean, it's been a difficult one, I imagine, this year, where most people we've spoken to have had so much time to really work on things that they haven't had time to work on. Like some people who haven't been able to get in the ring, they've just been working out solid for the last 9 months. People have been working on becoming better at technical side of wrestling and stuff. With yourself, I mean, I'm sure you've still been busy, but is there anything that you've taken away from the pandemic? Speaking of taking a positive from things, is there anything that you have like been able to focus in on during this time?
For me, it was working out. Yeah, because I hate the gym. Everyone always says, nobody's looking at you. What are you self-conscious about? I've literally been approached and spoken to so many times in the gym. Like, I can't pretend that nobody's looking at me. Men, women, people being mean, just everything. So I hate the gym. And as a result, I had a very hard time working out at the gym, but I try. And so as a result, I wasn't really going to the gym. I wasn't really working out.
Yeah.
The gym's closing down forced me to say, okay, I really need to bulk up my home gym. And that's when I made the discovery that I have no problem working out as long as I don't have to go to the gym. It's like a revelation for me. So I started working out 5 days a week. I took my rest days because that's what your body needs to recover. But I had a system. I had a whole thing I did. And I was able to really stick to it and make a lot of improvements in my strengths. All because I took away this stress that I didn't even know was stopping. I had like this blocker that I didn't even realize.
So you realized it's not the gym it's the gym you didn't like. It wasn't the working out, because I had a very similar mentality before, but then when I realized I really love working out, like the feeling of it afterwards is great. Even if you ache, it's still a good feeling sometimes. But I'm with you. I don't like the gym. I know I have to go sometimes, but and Jamie's just got you've just got a bit of a home gym, haven't you, Jamie?
I'm the same as you. I don't particularly want to be around people very much, and I don't want to pay gym prices. So I've got a nice big garden. I bought a skipping rope. I got some resistance bands the other day as well, and some of the best workouts I've had at the moment are using those resistance bands. They're absolutely incredible. So I'm with you on that one 100%. I'm aching like hell today from the workout, but it's that good ache where you've done something good. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Absolutely, yeah. Anything that keeps me away from people and a gym, I'm totally on board with that. Totally on board.
So now, during the pandemic, I started dating a wrestler, Ricky Mandel. You may have seen him as Ricky Mundo on Lucha Underground. Yeah. And if you've seen him, he's very muscly. So he goes to the gym a lot. Yeah. And so as a result, I have started going to the gym. But when I go with him, it's not scary. It's not stressful because I've got him there. Nobody bothers me. Literally, no one has ever spoken to me in the gym with him there. No one even looks at me. So that's been fine. So I've been able to work on strength there, and then at home is where I work on core and kind of like what do I call it? More like things that are useful to me, because you can go in a gym and you can lift weights and that will not translate in the ring. Whereas I really like to focus on things that are going to help me lift a girl in the air, going to help me put her down
functional
where I want her to be, that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. It's that makes perfect sense. It really does. Moving away, going back to your management thing as well, because I was doing a little bit of research, and you've managed a few decent events. Brian Kendrick's Wrestling Pro Wrestling. And did you get to interact with Brian much? Because he's a guy who I think has got a wonderful brain for the business.
Yeah, we would chat a bit. He's kind of weirdly shy. Like, not. Here's the thing: 90% of wrestlers are weirdly shy. Right. Meaning they're not shy if you find the right thing to talk about. Like, baseball, you can't shut them up about. But so Brian Kendrick's is like, if we get some whiskey, we can have some conversations. But we would chat sometimes. One time he was wearing a shirt that had my face on it, and then I found out he had drawn my face to be on that shirt. I was like, it's so like that's so cool. Brian Kendrick drew me. My favorite memory with Brian Kendrick though is he had a class, and I went to his. I couldn't go very often because it was a morning class and I had work. But I was able to go one time, and what he did that class is every person in the class tagged in and got to wrestle him for 10 minutes. And it was just technical wrestling.
Yeah.
So, a lot of hold to hold and submissions, and getting to roll around for 10 minutes with Brian Kendrick, and afterwards hearing everyone go, wow, Sarah, like, I've never seen you so confident in training. Like, you didn't even hesitate. You, like, that was really cool. And so then that made me feel good, because while I was in there with him, I felt like, I'm going to show you people. I just don't like being picked up in the air and dropped. But you take that away, I'm going to show you how much I love this. And so to know that, like, I did it and I was able to show them. And then Kendrick didn't even have any, like, notes for me afterwards. He was like, oh, you were doing fine. Like, you put locks in. Like, if you want to create new holds, all you have to do is find a body part, twist it. I was like, all right, thank you.
Good advice.
Yeah. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about Brian Kendrick and how good he is training and how they go to him. And am I right in thinking he was trained by Shawn Michaels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well,
I would ask better questions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not a bad guy for Brian to learn on, to then pass his knowledge down to people like yourself. The other one as well was, you was a part of, was it Lucha Libre Mayhem? Which, was it Rey Mysterio?
Oh, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like,
yeah,
that sounds familiar. Yes. So I worked with Rey Mysterio, with Conan, and that was great because they were all very generous with knowledge and tips. I was very new, so it was very basic stuff, but things that helped me, and then just being able to interact and feel like you belong here. It's not weird that you're here. And Conan told me, he was like, hey, you ever want to come work in Mexico, you let me know. But unfortunately, I'm not going there until I learn some Spanish, because the girls there are mean.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be prepared.
Yeah, that is a fair point, actually. Yeah, you learn some Spanish, maybe go in a few years, but it's still a cool experience. It's a nice invite to have there, I imagine, knowing that if you do want to work in Mexico, you've got the option.
Right.
I mean, Claire, that it must be a goal to work in Mexico. Is there other goals as well? Like, obviously, when the world opens up, do you want to come over to the UK, perhaps?
I was booked to wrestle at British Empire Wrestling in June.
Oh, British Empire Wrestling in Tooting, I think it is.
And the pandemic happened. So
yeah, it's a good promotion, actually. If you do get the chance to come in the future, it's a decent promotion. I think it's all. Is it all female?
I think it was going to be, because I believe it was a tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say the UK at the moment. Obviously, we haven't had a show. I think it's been since February, March time. The British wrestling scene, apart from NXT UK, the British wrestling scene just taken the year off, and understandably so.
Yeah.
But when it's back up and running, I mean, we've said this to many people before. Nearly every city in this country has a wrestling promotion now. It's insane. Wherever you go, there's a promotion. So you go to the UK, you're probably going to be here for a year. You're just going to be going from city to city. It's thriving at the moment.
We used to have two promotions, one in Manchester, one in London, but now there's just promotions everywhere, which is a good and a bad thing, because there's some not so great promotions out there. But I think that's just the same in the States and Canada, everywhere. You're always going to get the bad promotions, but there's some really good ones. So if you do get a chance to come over, I'm sure you're going to do just fine.
Well, that would be great. You know what I always wish, though? I wish that there was someone keeping a good database of wrestling promotions.
Yeah.
Because if I reach out, and I say, oh, okay, I'm going to be at this show in England. Let me see if there are other shows in England running near this time. And I could find nothing except one other show that had beef with this place, so I couldn't work there. So it's like, that's where I wish so bad that there was a database somewhere so wrestlers could make that plan a little bit easier.
Is that something that a lot of people would find easy, good to use? Because I'm actually a web developer, so
yeah, every wrestler would use that, because we get booked out, and let's say I get booked in Tennessee. Okay, I'm not familiar with Tennessee. Are there other places running? Is there somewhere else I could be wrestling? Or even not just Tennessee, within 20 miles of Tennessee, that's something that, because I think the biggest problem with indie wrestling is it's all word of mouth. And so if you don't talk to the person who knows, so many times I've heard of people who are like, oh yeah, they were looking for a girl, but I didn't know any. And I'm like, do you know where I live? And they're like, yeah, LA, right? I'm like, because it turns out I could have gone to that, or, and it's not just me. I hear it all the time from several other wrestlers, or wrestlers who want to go on a tour, like you were saying, come to England and really explore England as far as wrestling goes. So yeah, I think that would be something amazing, an amazing tool for people to use.
That might
it's creative juices are flowing now. You realize what you've done.
Don't worry, full credit for it.
A little banner at the top of the page.
Yeah.
Sarah the Rebel suggested this, book her.
Yeah. You might get a few dollars in royalties in a few years.
Hey, do it, man. Do it. Just don't forget me as well, by the way. Just, sling a few pounds my way. I can't turn a computer on, Sarah, so it won't be me doing it, but feel free to throw me some money, Callum. I'm perfectly okay with that.
No, I'm all right, mate.
Another place, obviously, I was looking at is OVW. You worked OVW. Was that a good experience?
It was until the pandemic. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I'm sure, I don't know if you guys are going through the same thing, but there's a lot of pandemic deniers out. And my aunt passed away from COVID. My cousin was very sick in the hospital under oxygen tent from COVID. Right. I have a bad immune system. I was born having to have a blood transfusion. So for me, when I go places and I'm expecting they're going to treat it as seriously as other places I've been, and then unfortunately OVW was one of the places that they just didn't. And so they can't really go back really there.
Disappointing to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's in the South. We can build people up on pedestals all we want to, but the bottom line, if you're hearing of a promotion and it's in the South, they're gonna have those kinds of attitudes, and that's just how it.
That's really that's crap.
But before the pandemic, I really enjoyed working at OVW because they do something that. So I've done television before, of course, with WOW and with Championship Wrestling in Hollywood, but this was live TV. And there's something very exhilarating about getting it right for live television, about getting getting that finish right before it's about to cut to commercial, exactly at the time you wanted it to be. That is a thrill. So I really enjoyed that. And they also make you feel very welcome there. They put you up in a hotel and they'll bring you food, and they just really do a great job of making you feel like how I feel every place should, that you're an athlete who they have hired to come into town. So here, let's make sure you are taken care of. So I definitely want to give them a shout out for that. And then I got to have my first cage match there. So lots of good memories for OVW.
And it's a very historic place as well, OVW. When you look at the talent, whether or not it's when it's being WWE affiliated or not, it's still an incredible place where so much talent has come from. So it must have been cool just to wrestle there, knowing some of the stars that have been generated from that place.
The last time I wrestled there, Al Snow told me good job, and I was just like, that's the coolest thing ever. Al Snow just told me good job, like unprompted, just I don't know. And I was like, and that was also my first time doing what's the real name for it? A second rope suplex. So it was just like kind of, it was a place where I got to try things and learn. And Sarah Stock was actually there from the ex-WWE. And she gave feedback, and I loved her feedback for me because it was very positive. But hearing from someone who's worked at such a high level that you are doing the thing you're good at very well, that's like a really good boost. Because what I'm good at is I find that camera and I give that camera all of my energy, and you can't look away from me. And that's like the thing I can do. I'm not the greatest technical wrestler. I'm not a high flyer, but I am going to entertain you and make you feel something. And so hearing from someone who worked in television that I have that quality that I felt like I had, that was like, okay, cool.
You mentioned as well, obviously, you had a cage match. What was that like? I mean, do you have to go about that in a different way to a normal match? I mean, what was it like being in the cage?
You do. It's just so interesting how much you take for granted, and when you have these stipulation matches, how much you have to think outside of what you've been taught. So because they don't actually train you here, have a match without ropes, have a match with a cage, have a match with, Santino Bros started to train people that way, and I think it's so helpful for them to do so. But before that, you don't really get trained. Here's how to work outside the ring. Here's how to use a weapon. Like, no, you find that out day of. You go, hey, how do I hit you with this? And they're like, oh, please don't hit me with this end. And then, that's kind of what it is. So we get in the cage. We did not have much time in the cage. And then, unfortunately, because of who was in the match, it wasn't quite what I would have liked a cage match to be perfectly honest. It was, some people there didn't feel like really working that night. And so they kind of took the easy way in an effort to make sure nothing went wrong, versus what I love is let's try things. And if we fall on our face, well, we tried something and we learned from it. So I definitely want to have another cage match. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And before we start to wrap things up as well, you mentioned WoW. We spoke to Gabby Ortiz yesterday, and she'd said it's probably one of the most fun locker rooms she's ever been in. What was your experience like there?
That's funny. She missed a lot of it. The girls in WoW who are wonderful are so wonderful, beyond wonderful. And then unfortunately, there's a few bad apples. One of them, very well-known name, is a bully. She bullied me. I almost quit wrestling completely because of her. So, you had that, and you had what was going on with that little clique that developed around that kind of attitude. Then you had people like Thunder Rosa, who was so inspired that she wanted to make the complete opposite kind of locker room. Where people are very positive to each other and try to help each other. And people like Robin Reed, who's now a booker, and she was just amazing to work with. And then Jessica Havok, actually, she's the reason I'm still wrestling, because I was going to quit. I was going to have my match that I agreed to have with WoW, and then I was going to quit because one of the greatest wrestlers in the world told me I was garbage. Why should I continue? And after my match, Jessica Havok came up to me and she said, your match was my favorite match of this day. You guys did a great job. It was me and the Lioness, that was her second match ever. And to hear that from Jessica Havok, who's a veteran, who's so well known in the industry, I was like, okay, no, I can do this. I'm staying and I'm going to keep wrestling. And I'm really glad.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God for Jessica Havok then. And you stuck with it, because that would have been such a shame. But I think we all know who you're talking about. But I'm so glad she's not part of the locker room now, if that's the case. And hopefully there's more positive people like Jessica Havok in locker rooms, because she sounds lovely.
She really is. She knows so much, and she's so generous with that knowledge. That's the hard thing. Another person, Katarina Waters, she was also there, and she's another one who's so generous. The women veterans that are generous with their knowledge are like 10 times better even than the male vets for women wrestlers, because they can tell us things that only apply to us. Like the very first day I had my tryout at WoW, and Selena Major says, hey, why are you falling with one leg when you take a front bump? And I'm like, oh, that's the way I was taught. She's like, men do that because they have to protect their balls. You don't have any balls. You don't have to fall like that. And it was just like mind blowing. Like
I just made that connection now. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yes. So there's things like that apply to you, that apply because you are wrestling someone who's a certain height, or because you're wrestling someone who will have they've been trained to do it this kind of way. They're going to move their body this kind of way. Their center of gravity is lower, than the people that you trained with. And so the women vets who are generous with that knowledge, to me, are just like the best part of the WoW locker room, because you get to come there and you get to learn and absorb so much. And then the snack table is the second best part of the WoW locker room. There's so many snacks. But besides, I do want to say, besides those, WoW is my absolute favorite place to work. hands down, the place I love more than any other place, because even with those few bad apples, it was not enough to ruin the experience, to ruin the passion of all the people involved. You know, David McLean really wants WoW to be a place to showcase women wrestlers, and he wants to do it in a way that's not this person's a champion because she looks a certain way. Anyone, WoW, fat, skinny, old, young. I mean, we have so many moms that work at WoW, 40-year-old moms wrestling at WoW.
That's awesome.
Gay, straight, black, white, anything. It does not matter. You can be a champion at WoW. And that's something that I think is so amazing, and that's the company I want to work for. As long as it exists, that's the place I want to work.
And they put good snacks out as well, so a bonus.
Always good.
I love
You
snacks.
you can't beat snacks. Out of curiosity, what's your favourite snack?
Well, I'll tell you my favorite snack there. They bring out, halfway through the day, they bring out the crackers and the meat and the cheese tray.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And I just sit in front of it and I watch the matches.
Do you wrap the cheese and the meats up together?
Oh, yeah. It's all going. It's making a little sandwich.
Wrap it all up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
perfect. Kind of making me hungry now, actually. That's,
I haven't had my tea yet.
I love cheese.
Oh, who doesn't love cheese? Come on, cheese is the best. A friend of mine sent me a picture today. She's actually just bought herself an advent calendar for Christmas, and it's a cheese advent calendar. So every day you open up a block of cheese, different cheese.
I want that. Somebody
right?
listening to this podcast, send me a cheese advent calendar.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I sent her a message back, and I've never ever in my 36 years on this planet seen a cheese advent calendar. I'm going to have a look for that now. It's on my bucket list.
I want one. Yes, because sometimes the chocolate in advent calendars can be very hit or miss here in America. Our chocolate is bad.
Yeah, our chocolate's not that bad, but the advent calendars, once you get to day 25, you're kind of like, I don't want to eat that.
I much prefer the chocolate in the UK to in America.
Yeah, the chocolate in UK is the most amazing, delicious, wonderful chocolate in the world. I like crunchies, curly whirlies, flakes, buttons. Oh, I could go on and on. They're just all. I gained so much weight when I was in Scotland for 2 months, and I was like, listen, just let it happen. I'm gonna eat these McVitties, and I'm gonna gain weight, and it's okay. When I go to Vegas, I'll lose it all, but right now you leave me alone. And so the costume people kept having to just adjust my skirt. You're not gonna take this from me.
That's great.
I've got a cupboard full downstairs at the moment, full of curly whirlies, actually. That you mentioned that.
Let me tell you a funny story. My mom's from England. My aunts still live in England, and every year, apparently, my aunts were sending me candy for Easter. But my mother, once I was out of her house, did not tell me that they were sending me candy. So one time I'm on Facebook and my auntie Catherine says, Sarah, did you get the chocolates I sent you? And I said, what? So I go home to visit my mother and I confront her. And I say, Auntie Catherine said that she has been sending me candy every year for Easter. And my mom looks at me and her face just fell. She was just like, and then she takes a key. She goes to our trunk. She opens it. She hands me the one that's left. She had been eating my chocolate for years.
Oh, no. Heel turn from mum. Oh, my God.
Your own child. Taking the candy from your own child.
Taking the candy from a... Wow.
Where's your mum from in the UK?
Lancashire. Did I say that right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
because we're in Yorkshire, so Lancashire's about a 2-hour drive from us. So it's not that far. It's a lovely place. I've been a few times.
I've been to Yorkshire. I've been a few places in England. The problem I have is remembering the names because they all sound the same to my American ears. I'm like, yeah, that's where the hobbits live, right? Hillshire, Yorkshire,
that's the one.
Lancashire.
There's a lot everywhere. There's a shire almost, actually. When you now I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of shires, Callum, isn't there?
Well, the thing is,
then my granddad is from Lancaster,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is different than Lancashire, So for me, I'm just like, I don't know, Northamptonshire. That's where my aunts live.
That's right. Yeah. There's just
a lot of
everything's a shire.
You've got a lot of the same place names though in America because of the original colonies. Like they were so lazy with how they named cities back in those days. They were just like, well, I'm from Hull, so we'll just call this place Hull. So
right. So I can remember Northamptonshire because I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, Norfolk, Suffolk. Those are the towns where I grew up. They're just exactly the same.
They're just lazy settlement names. They didn't come up with a new name. They were just like, I
like the Queen Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria. Yeah. Oh, she was the Virgin Queen. We'll call it Virginia. Oh, creative. Well done.
Yep. Great.
There you go. But yeah, Lancashire's a lovely place. But now I think about it, you've got me thinking there is a lot of shires. I've never thought about that until you just mentioned it.
Only just realised.
That's
like we learned that in school in geography on the first day.
I'm 36 years old. It was a long time ago, school. But that is I've just realized there's a lot of shires. Wow. Okay. Anyway,
we've blown his mind. You've blown his
mind. Mind blown. So before we wrap things up, you mentioned hopefully coming to the UK again. What are any other plans for hopefully 2021 when the world opens?
I want to go back to WoW. Unfortunately, WoW has had to suspend everything, for safety. But we actually have a season filmed, and they just don't want to release a season and then a big, huge break again, like what we've just had to deal with. So they want, to be able to release in a row. So WoW is my number one priority. I want WoW to come back. And then after that, I was paying my rent with wrestling, which is kind of a big deal. And I'd love to go back to that, being able to just focus on wrestling and training and working out. And Ricky, my boyfriend, he's been wrestling for, I think, 15 years. So he's got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about, and he really studies constantly. He's constantly watching wrestling, studying, learning. And so as we work together, I'm learning cool things too. So we want to be a tag team, and we want to actually, work together. So that's something in 2021. I'd really love to actually have our first tag match. It would be really great. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And we always, before we wrap things up, we'd like you to please push your social medias or any merch, things like that you want to promote.
Sure. So the best place to find everything you need to know about me is on Patreon, patreon.com/Sarah the Rebel. That's where I sell prints. That's where you can become part of my crew. So you get access to my close friends on Instagram, all sorts of stuff. And then you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Sarah the Rebel. Sarah's an H because it's very important to me. But yeah, so you can find me pretty much anywhere you look as Sarah the Rebel. And if you'd like to buy merch, just message me. I don't have an actual store yet because so many stores. Actually, I have a UK store. If you're listening and you're in the UK, UK Wrestle Tees, you can buy a Sarah the Rebel shirt on there. And awesome. They have lots of sizes.
Ooh.
Sorry about that. I just got started. I don't know what happened.
I know, definitely. Callum is very good at the graphics also. He'll put all that on the screen, won't he, Callum? So people know where to find it.
Thanks. Just give me more editing to do. I'll put them in the description of the episode.
That's what I meant.
It better be word art or I'm never coming on the show again. Word art. Flipping around.
Yeah.
He'll do it. That's what I pay him to do. Well, all right, I haven't paid him yet.
I paid for this. And a back date.
We'll discuss that another time, Callum. But Sarah, like I said, please, we'd love you to come back at some point as well, if you would. There's so much to talk about. We've had so much fun. You are awesome. We've really enjoyed it. No, it's been a pleasure. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Please come back. But for now, she's Sarah the Rebel. We are Ringsiders.